Morning, church, and good morning to those of you who are joining us online. We appreciate having you with us. I want to share a couple of announcements before we get into the lesson this morning. First of all, please don't forget about the play tonight. Go Tell It on the Mountain is the title, and lots and lots of our little ones are going to be participating. This will be right after our evening service this evening. A lot of effort's gone into this, and I hope you'll come and support that effort. Next Sunday morning, Lanny Tucker from Eastern European Missions is going to be here speaking and giving a report on the work that's being done by EEM. He'll also be teaching our Bible class next Sunday morning. Eastern European Missions has done a tremendous job of seeing that the Word of God gets into Eastern European countries through the years. And they continue very much involved in that ministry of the Word. And they need our support. Next Sunday, you'll have the opportunity to contribute to EM if you would like to. You'll be able to either give that money to Lanny, or if you want to put it in the box and mark it EEM, you can do that. But it's a great work. And again, Lanny will be here next Sunday to talk to us about Eastern European missions. Also, next Sunday, two representatives from the Department of Corrections, Oklahoma Department of Corrections, are going to be here, not to arrest or incarcerate anybody, but to inform you that the Fort Gibson Church of Christ has once again been selected as the Volunteer Group of the Year by the Department of Corrections, which is quite an honor. Yeah, and so next Sunday, a couple of representatives will be here to actually present that award to the congregation here. Thank God for all of you who participate in that good work, and in particular for the work that Henry and Cheryl do in that regard. This morning, I want us to go to the Book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to be looking in chapter 1, and I want us to take a look at 3 complaints or observations that Solomon makes. As I was thinking about, I'll be preaching this Sunday, and then on the 26th I'll be preaching. We'll be gone on the 19th, and so I've got 2 lessons left as pulpit minister to share with you. And one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was the incredible importance of having the proper perspective on life. I've read some statistics this past week that really troubled me. One was, it doesn't make any difference if you're 14 or 34 or 54 or 84 or 7 or whatever. Statistically, right now in the United States of America, 1 in 5 in any age group is dealing with depression. 1 in 5. That means that between online and here, we have 500 people today who are worshiping as we worship. That means we've got 100 people who are wrestling and grappling with depression. I read another stat that shook me up even more than that. When they looked at people over the age of 50, and they asked them, how many of you in the past year, 2021, have had some form of depression? 43% said they had. 43%. Brothers and sisters, life's hard. And we kid ourselves if we think otherwise. We talked last week about building our house on stone, rock, or on sand, right? And one of the truths that Jesus shares in Matthew chapter 7 in that parable is that I don't care whether you build your house on the rock or you build your house on sand. He says one thing you can be dead dog sure of is storms will come. And they are going to blow against your house. And you better be ready for those storms when they come. What's he saying? Life's not easy, okay? It's not always a bed of roses. And by the way, roses have thorns, don't they? But the fact of the matter is that we live in difficult, challenging, fear-filled times. And I think it's incredibly important as children of God that we have the proper perspective on life. Solomon in Ecclesiastes is going to deal with two different perspectives. As we ask the question, how are you going to view life? 29 times in Ecclesiastes, Solomon is going to make reference to looking at life either above the sun or under the sun. And as he talks about above the sun, what he's talking about is, are you focusing on God's guidance and on God's promises? Are you looking to Him? Are you seeking, James 3:17, that wisdom that is from above? Is that what's guiding your life? Or are you looking under the sun? That is, are you focusing on earthly wisdom? Are you focusing on earthly rewards? James 3:15, are you being guided by a wisdom that he terms earthly, sensual, and devilish? Now, the fact of the matter is, all of us constantly face the question of which perspective are we going to take? Which wisdom are we going to follow after? Are we going to look above the sun, or are we going to look under the sun? Your perspective on life makes all the difference in the world. And it all has to do with where you're looking in your life. Now, here's Solomon's first complaint. It's found in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 4 through 8, the first part of verse 8. Notice what he writes. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind. And on its circuits, the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea's not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. Now, what's Solomon's first complaint? I think you could basically sum that up by saying, life consists of nothing but the same things over and over again. Listen to that summary statement of his. All things are full of weariness. A man can't utter it. You can't put into words how frustrating and boring that life is. Well, here's a question for you. Is this predictability designed to bore us, or is it designed to reassure us? And your answer has everything to do with your perspective. Has everything to do with whether you're looking above the sun or under the sun. For instance, let's talk for a moment about the law of gravity. Thank God for the law of gravity. One thing about it, it's consistent, isn't it? Now, I want you to imagine if for a moment we didn't have the law of gravity, or the law of gravity only applied in certain places at certain times. Wouldn't that make a car trip interesting? You're driving to Muskogee, and you get about to the casino, and all of a sudden your car starts floating in the air. Woo! Wouldn't that make it interesting? You're trying to walk downstairs, and all of a sudden you hit an anomaly and you float off the stairs, and you're like, uh-oh, this could get painful real quick, couldn't it? The fact of the matter is that we take for granted a law that gives tremendous confidence and regularity to us in our lives. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. What if the sun came up from a different direction every day? This morning it came up in the north and it chooses to go down in the east. And tomorrow it comes up in the west and goes down in the south. And you never know which direction the sun's going to come up from or what direction it's going to go down in. The fact of the matter is we are able to regulate our lives in incredibly important ways because we live in a carefully regulated universe. Genesis chapter 1 teaches on the fourth day, God put those lights in the heavens, those stars, that sun, that moon, so that we could know days and seasons and years. So we can look at our watches and go, okay, it's 10:15 right now. And we can all consistently hold to that. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, why does sameness sometimes aggravate us like it does? Why can boredom cause us to fail to appreciate special blessings? How many people through the years, bless their hearts, have left their mates because they're bored with them? Yeah, I mean, he's a good guy, but I'm just tired of him. Yeah, she's a sweet lady, but I just got to find somebody else. And then, a couple of years later, they wake up and they go, oops, why did I leave her? Why did I leave him? I had something very, very special. I think way, way too often we see the same thing over and over again, and we fail to see that person or that situation as the blessing that they are. And it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how are you looking at life? Are you looking at life above the sun? Or are you looking at life under the sun? Here's Solomon's second complaint. He gives it in 1:8b through verse 10. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. Well, his complaint, the new, is really nothing but the old recycled. Again, summed up in verse 9, there is nothing new under the sun. Question again. Why are we so easily bored? And let's not kid ourselves, man, we are. How long, you hear a song on the radio and you go, wow, man, that's a great song. How long does that song last at number one? Man, if it goes a month, people are just gaga, aren't they? Wow, it's been on the charts for 4 weeks at the top. Because a lot of times it's lucky to make it a week or two before something replaces it, right? Why? Because we get bored with it. That's why. A movie comes out. Oh, man, you got to go see this movie. Everybody's got to go see this movie. And boy, I mean, for a week or 2 or 3, it's right up at the top. Everybody's excited. They want to go see this movie, and then it begins to slide off. Why? Well, I've seen it, and I don't know that I want to see it again. Okay, we get bored with it, don't we? And it happens in so many areas of life. And I would argue, here's part of the problem. We are drawn to new and improved for 2021 and fixing to be 2022, right? New and improved. Man, that new Nissan, that new Ford, that new Chevrolet, new and improved. And if you look at it, all they've done is change the headlights a little bit, or tweak the bumper, or done something different on the dash. New and improved. No, it's the same old car, just dolled up a little bit, configured a little different. What is there about new that just fascinates us? If it's new, man, I got to have it. Is it in part because we're looking for satisfaction in all the wrong places? Because we're looking for satisfaction under the sun. We're looking for satisfaction here, and the fact of the matter is, if you're looking here, you ain't ever going to be satisfied. Remember that Rolling Stones song? I can't get no satisfaction. Well, that was true 50 years ago when they were singing that. It's still true. It was true a long time before that. That's been true since humanity's been around. If we're looking for things to satisfy us, we're always going to be let down. They're always going to break our heart because things are never going to satisfy us. Oh, if I just get that new house, whew, I'll be happy from here on. Yeah, I've observed before, I'm fascinated by the fact there'll be these articles, what's the most expensive home in the world? And here it is, $350 million estate in Purgatoria somewhere, I don't know. And they'll pump it up and talk about it, and somebody spent years and years building this thing. Why is it for sale? Huh? Because whoever built it's bored with it already, that's why. And on and on and on it goes. Solomon's like, man, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's boring. Yeah, because you're looking under the sun. And if you're looking under the sun for satisfaction, you're never going to find it under the sun. Earthly things are always going to let us down. It's only when we look above the sun that we're going to find satisfaction. That we're going to find something that will fill our souls and fill our hearts and calm our spirits and give us peace. Is there really anything new? The example that's always used, and I think it's a good one, is light. When Solomon wrote this, they had lamp light, didn't they? You've probably seen pictures. They look kind of like Aladdin's lamp, with these little lamps, and they'd stick a wick in them and have oil in them, and that was a light you get at night, and it ain't all that bright, is it? And forever, thousands and thousands of years, people saw by firelight, by lamplight, by candlelight. That's what they had, and that's what they used. And then there was this revolution, and they figured out how to use gas, and so they had gas lamps, lanterns to light the night in big cities and all that, and this was a huge advance. And then here came Thomas Edison. And if legend's true, after 10,000 tries, he produces what? A light bulb. And it transformed people's lives. Because now we don't have the sense to go to bed at night, do we? Because we can see in the dark. And so we don't go to bed with the chickens anymore. We'll stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning because we can see. And we couldn't see before. And then what happens? Oh, we get fluorescent bulbs. And that just transforms things. Except fluorescent bulbs now are old hat, aren't they? Now we've got LED. That's what we got in here. LED lights. And they can mimic natural sunlight and provide more lumens with all blah, blah, blah. I don't understand all of it, but you can see better, they say. But the bottom line is, it's all light, isn't it? It's just variations on a theme. That's all it is. And whether you're talking about transportation, or you're talking about clothing, or you're talking about heating and cooling, or you're talking about food preparation, I don't care what you're talking about, really there's nothing new under the sun. Everything we have is a variation on a theme. Now again, is that a bad thing? I would argue no. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I am glad that people could see in 1000 BC, even if it was by lamplight. And I'm really glad that we've got LED lights now. And I'm sure if the world's around a couple 100 years from now, people are going to be going, how did they ever see with LED lights? Look at what we've got now. The fact of the matter is things continue to evolve and change, but they get better, not worse. I'm very grateful. You know, I've read several thought-provoking articles about people talk about all the money that Rockefeller had. Yeah, and then you look at what Rockefeller could buy with all that money and what we can buy today. And Rockefeller lived way below the status that we live today with all the money that he had. Because we have all these modern conveniences that were not available to him that money could not buy. Are you going to look above the sun? Or are you going to look under the sun? Third complaint. Summed up, the world has a great forgetter. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. In other words, he is really ticked that he thinks people aren't going to remember him. Now we do. We do because he wrote in an inspired book, and we still have that inspired book, and we have historians, so we still remember, but the vast majority of the time people don't remember. There is a really famous poem called Ozymandias, and I wanted to put it up here for you. Percy Bysshe Shelley wrote this back in 1818. And to me, it is one of the classic pieces of literature in all of English, this poem, because he expresses in an incredible way how people forget. How desperately people want to be remembered, but how we're not very good at it. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip the sneer of cold command tells that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." There have been king after king who have lived, and they just knew, because they built these huge statues, carved themselves into cliffs, built temples, and all this. People are going to remember me. You want to find Babylon, you dig it with a spade, don't you? You want to find Assyria, you dig it with a spade, don't you? Back in the 17th and 18th centuries, there was a lot of critics of the Bible. They said, the Bible's fake. Let us tell you why it's fake. It's fake because it talks about these people in the Old Testament who never existed. We have never found any proof of their existence. That's the Hittites. It makes mention of the fact that Abraham buys some land from a Hittite. And it talks about how one of David's mighty men, Uriah, the man he had murdered, whose wife he stole, was a Hittite. Well, the Hittites never existed. See, there you go. Fictitious book. And then, in the mid-19th century, archaeologists began to dig in Turkey. And they started finding these remains and these walls, and they couldn't figure out who built them. Huge. I mean, they found a city, they estimated this city had 50,000 people in it at one time. Who lived there? Man, they couldn't figure it out. And they began to find these tablets, and they couldn't decipher the tablets. It was written in some language they couldn't recognize. And finally, this German scholar got a hold of these tablets and he translated them. And guess what? Hittites. Yeah, it's a Hittite city. And it's talking about Hittite kings and a Hittite kingdom. And it was very real. And it lasted for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And got buried in the dirt and sand. To the point that people literally didn't even remember that it existed. If you are living and looking under the sun and assuming that that is what's going to give meaning to your life, that is, that you're going to be remembered. I mean, what do you know about your ancestors? How many of you can tell me the name of your great-great-grandfather? Raise your hand. Rare birds. Not very many. And probably most of you are either into genealogies or you've got a cousin or a brother or sister or somebody who's into genealogies who gave you the information. I can't go past my great-grandfather or my great-grandmother on either side of the family. Am I an ungrateful wretch? No, I think I'm a normal human being. You just don't remember. And I'm not kidding myself. If this world's still around a couple of hundred years from now, I don't expect my great-grandkids to have any idea about who Dan Rouse was. Because I don't think they will. And that's okay, because you see, let me make a point and then make a point. Is it important to learn from the past? Romans 15:4. For whatever was written in former days was written for our instruction, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the Scriptures, we might have hope. Why was the Old Testament written? Hopefully, for us to pay attention to it and learn, there's some stuff you don't want to do, and there is some stuff you want to do. And to tell us about our God and to let us learn about what happens when you follow God and when you don't. Incredibly important lessons to learn. And the bottom line is I think hopefully we all understand, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, aren't you? And to make the same mistakes people made that went before you, and hopefully you're wise enough not to do that. But those things written aforetime are important. Now here's the thing. What benefit is there to being remembered by men if God doesn't know you? Frankly, when I die, I don't care. I really don't care who's going to remember me long term. But when I stand before my God in judgment, man, I want Him to know me. Isn't that what matters? Isn't that what really counts? Is that God knows you. Whether people remember you or not, man, that means nothing ultimately. But whether God knows you, that makes all the difference. Revelation 20, when those books are opened, man, I want my name written in that book of life. And if there are people who remember me 5 generations from now, my name's not written in that book of life, I'm in a world of hurt. It doesn't make any difference what kind of impression you leave here. What's going to make a difference if you're looking above the sun is, does God know you? That is what counts. That's the perspective that really matters. So think about Solomon's complaints. How are you going to view life in this coming year, in 2022? Are you going to look above the sun, or are you going to look under the sun? I want to encourage you, man, look above the sun. It's the only way to live this life. It's a beautiful way to live this life. Is the new really always better than the old? I would argue in many, many cases, nope. In many cases, the old is just fine. It's a good thing. And most importantly, if God remembers you, does it really matter if men forget? And it really doesn't. What matters is that God knows you. And that's a perspective that's above the sun. I just want to encourage you. Keep looking up, not under. And if we can help you look up this morning and see how important it is that you give your life to God, and that you keep your perspective above the sun, and that you trust Him and put your priorities where He says you need to put your priorities, and that you become His child as you confess your belief in Him and you put Him on in baptism. That is what matters. That is what counts. That is what's important. We can help you in any way. Please come while we stand and while we sing.